Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America. Welcome to Food for Thought, Thinking with Jesus. It is September 24th, 2020. It's springtime here in Brazil. Beautiful day outside. I don't know where it is, how it is where you are, but one thing I do know, it's a great day to remember that all of us should live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God, and we have the mind of Christ so we can think with Christ. And it is our custom to read a devotional together and then think about those things and then take those thoughts to Jesus where we can think with Jesus. Then we can come to the right conclusions about the subject. And the title of today's devotional is Be Good at Love. Be good at love. If you want to be good at anything, be good at love. Love is the only human endeavor that lasts. When we were made to be good at love. Success may look like control of circumstances, but love is success. Jesus dying on the cross was not an attempt to control his unpleasant circumstances created by the Romans and the religious leaders of his day. His death was a demonstration of the love he came to deliver. Success may look like accumulation of money or power, but love is success. Jesus died penniless and nude on a cross. Even so, there was never a moment in human history where love was more clearly visible in a human life. His lack of money or human power was overshadowed by his love. He died powerfully clothed in love. Success may look like living a long life and retiring well, but love is success. Jesus did not live long, and his plan for retirement was non-existent. His early death was perfectly timed love. If you want to be good at anything, be good at love. You know, all of us are going through this experience of the pandemic that has taken over our world for the last 8 or 9 months, or 8 months, I guess it is. And I think one of the things that I've noticed in talking with people and examining my own reaction to the pandemic is it has really upset our normal view of what success is. Everybody started 2020 thinking about what they were going to do. We made our plans, we set out our goals, and then the pandemic hit and everything we had planned was turned upside down. And I think we're all suffering from a new success dynamic that is making us all very uncomfortable because we can't make plans. And we are suffering with the sense that, will we ever be successful again? Well, I guess that depends on how we define success. Some years ago, I think maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, I was privileged here in Brazil to sit down for dinner with an American theologian, very famous author of over 50 books, a very well-known man. And it was a particular honor for me to be able to sit down and just have a meal with this man. I'd read many of his books. And out of the blue, he looked at me and he said to me, Bud, I want you to tell me how you define success. And no one had ever asked that question of me, but it was interesting because I had been going through years, literally years, trying to understand what true success is by looking into the scriptures and looking into the life of Jesus. And so it just so happened that I had a ready response which I had thought deeply about. And I told him, well, my definition of success is taking love's next step. I'd worked for many years to come to that little statement for myself. Love is taking love's next step. And he looked at me and he said, you know, that's really a good definition. I'm going to think about that. Well, that was a real shock to me because this man thinks on a level that very few people think on. And but it had come to me because I had struggled many times with having some success and then not having it, and having some success and not having it, based on the way I was trained to evaluate what success is as a leader, as a pastor. What I've come to believe and what I've come to understand is that true success is directly related to our cooperation with God. And our cooperation with God is that God is love and he wants us to deliver love. I want to read a passage to you in Luke chapter 18, beginning in verse 31. The most successful life that has ever been lived is the life of Jesus. I don't think any Christian would debate that. There is, even in secular terms, if you look at the history of the world and you look at the powerful impact of Jesus on human history, I don't think very many people would argue with you about him being the most influential life that's ever been lived in this world. And I really think that we can learn so much about success if we will watch the behavior of Jesus from the time that he calls his first disciples all the way through the crucifixion. In Luke chapter 18, verse 31, it says this, "Then he, Jesus, took the 12 aside and said to them, 'Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and all things that are written by the prophets concerning the Son of Man will be accomplished. He will be delivered to the Gentiles, and will be mocked and insulted and spit upon. They will scourge him and kill him, and the third day he will rise again.' But they understood none of these things. This saying was hidden from them, and they did not know the things which were spoken." I think it's so interesting that he tells them exactly what's going to happen to him. But either because they weren't able to understand or God still did not allow them to understand, they were not ready for Jesus' definition of success. They were not ready to be told that this is the best. This is what success looks like when human reality is at stake and reconciliation with God is at stake and forgiveness of sins is at stake. So they couldn't get their arms around the idea that it could be possible to go through tremendous suffering and be tremendously successful. But now that we have the perspective of history and we can look back on what Jesus did, I really believe we can see that when he says, "We're going to walk up to Jerusalem." I've been in Israel, and the city of Jerusalem is way up high. And to get there, you have to walk up. In those days, you didn't have a car or a bus. You had to walk up. And it's really, really not an easy walk. And going up to Jerusalem was a metaphor of going toward the presence of God, going toward the will of God. And so when we see Jesus, we can see the most successful life that has ever lived because he took each step that love demanded he take. So here's what I would like for you to think about. We're in a pandemic. Many of us are completely confused about why God would permit this and what are its implications. Companies are in turmoil. Nations are in turmoil. The world is in turmoil. And I think one of the things we're all suffering with is success has seemed to become undefined. And if we define it, we're not even sure we can define it. But what about in the life of a believer? What about a disciple of Jesus Christ? I would suggest that maybe you take a really strong look again at how Jesus defined success. I believe that you'll see that it was the quality of his love over time, in the right place at the right time, being the right person to do what he was called to do. He loved his own and he loved them to the end. He loved you and he loved me, and he did what was necessary. He took love's next step. Think on these things. Take these thoughts to Jesus. And as always, you have the mind of Christ, and he will reveal the truth to you. God bless you. Have a great day. Have a successful life. Take love's next step.